All right, hi, and welcome to another installment of Math Basics, Mr. Besh. Today, again, we're going to be working with adding and subtracting rational numbers, but this is going to be part two. Now we're going to integrate mixed fractions and also whole values into this mix. We're also going to talk about the borrowing factor, which you learned a long time ago in elementary school when you subtracted values. You remember sometimes you had to borrow to finish your subtraction. You're going to see that creep up as well. So now we've got four examples for you today. The first example is what happens when you combine together two mixed values. The first thing I want to tell you about is forget about the whole numbers till the end. You only want to worry about the fraction part. And like we did the other day, you want to take your fractions 4 over 5 and 1 over 6, find a common denominator that they both go into, and you want to rewrite your fractions. Remember, unlike reducing our fractions, we said yesterday we are blowing these up. So the least common multiple of 5 and 6 is 30. So now we want to rewrite our fractions just like we did the other day. So 4 over 5 is going to become 24 over 30, and 1 over 6 is going to become 5 over 30. And then add together the fractional part. And once you get your fractional part, all you need to do is add the whole values to this. And when you're all said and done, your answer comes out to be 5 and 29 over 30. Notice, 4 over 5 is 24 over 30, and 1 over 6 is 5 over 30. And we took 24 over 30 plus 5 over 30 to make 29 over 30. And then all we did was take our whole values at the very end. 2 plus 3 made 5, and my final answer to the problem comes out to be 5 and 29 over 30. Second example we're going to do is where you're going to have a single whole value here, 6. The trick that you want to do in this math problem is you want to borrow, okay? Just like you did in elementary school. You want to take 1 away from 6 and give it a fraction part, okay? You want to make 6 a mixed value, okay? Now, the first thing that I know is we are going to be subtracting from this 7 over 10. So now my mixed value, my fraction part, is going to need to have a 10 in the denominator. Remember, when you add and subtract fractions, the denominator needs to be the same. So now I need to think to myself, how, if I take 1 away from 6, that's going to give me 5. Clearly that's going to give me 5. But then to make the fraction part, I need to make 1 with 10 as a denominator. To do that, that's easy. Anytime I take the same number and put it over itself, that makes 1. Notice 6 equals 5 and 10 over 10, because 10 over 10 is 1 and 5 plus 1 makes 6. So now I'm in business. Now all I have to do is subtract my fractional part. And when I do that, it becomes basic. My answer is 5 and 3 over 10 as a fraction portion, okay? Because 10 over 10 minus 7 over 10 makes 3 over 10, and it's basically just 5 minus 0, which is a 5. Notice also, if you go back, remember the key thing is when you check your answers, when you're all said and done, what you're doing here originally in the problem is you're saying 6 minus, and we all know 7 over 10 is less than 1. Well, if you think about dollars, if you have $6 and you subtract something less than $1 from that, you're going to have 5 and some change. So you know right away that your answer is in the ballpark. And this is how you handle each and every time subtracting values, a whole number and a fraction portion. Okay? Our third example. What happens when we have 3 fractions? Well, this one works exactly like my first example. You treat it like there's just 2. All right? You do everything exactly the same. The fractions are 1/2, 2 over 5, and 3 over 4. You want to find a common denominator for all 3 of them and then make your equivalent fractions. So now 1/2 becomes 10 over 20 because, 20 was my least common multiple. And then you have 8 over 20. And last but not least over here, you have 15 over 20. And then what I got to end up doing next is I take my fraction part and I add those together. 10 over 20 plus 8 over 20 plus 15 over 20 comes out to be 33 over 20. Now remember, improper fractions are no good. We need to make these mixed values. 33 over 20 as a mixed value is 1 13/20. But that's not my answer because remember, in my original problem, I had whole values, 5, 1, and 2. So now I need to add up all my whole values. 5 plus 1 makes 6, 6 plus 2 makes 8, and last but not least, I need to add 1 to that. And my final answer to this problem is 9 13/20. All right? Notice it's step by step. Granted, everything I did here was very easy, but because there was a number of steps, this is a reason where you want to definitely pay attention because mistakes can in fact be made. Last one I want to look at in this unit. Last example here, fourth one. This is one that creeps up on you a little bit. First example that I'm showing you here of two fractions where the least common multiple is one of the fractions. The least common denominator is 4 here. So when I write this first fraction out, it's going to be 4 1/4. And when I write the second fraction out here, it's going to be 2 2/4. But then I got a problem, I got a dilemma. Because now this is the first time I've encountered my fractions where the numerator on the top was smaller than my numerator on the bottom. So again, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to borrow. I'm going to have to borrow 1 from 4 out front. You take 1 away from the 4 and you make that guy a 3. And then now the fraction part, what I need to do is take the denominator of the original fraction, which was 4, because my fraction was 1/4. I take the denominator of that fraction and I need to add it to the top. So now, as a result, 4 1/4 becomes 3 5/4. Notice, 4 1/4 was it originally? 3 5/4 after I'm done, after I borrowed. Remember, 5/4 is 1 1/4. And if I take 1 1/4 and add that to 3, I get 4 1/4. And now what I do is I take my top fraction, 3 5/4, minus 2 2/4, and when I'm all said and done, my answer comes out to be 1 3/4 as a fraction. And these are our 4 examples, and this is it, adding and subtracting fractions. I hope you found this both helpful and informative.